Hello folks, and welcome to this week's Hi-Fi review. But before we get to the Hi-Fi review, just a quick channel update. It's to do with timings, really. As you, if you're a regular viewer, you will know that the Hi-Fi reviews, the videos themselves are, well, the last couple of weeks they've been published on a Monday. Used to be Saturday, Sunday kind of thing. And it's been Monday. So that's where it's going to be in the future. It's going to be fixed on a Monday. Why is that? Well, workflow. Things fall in a particular way, don't they? If you've got a range of jobs, and they just sort of flow better if they are done in this way rather than that way. And that's what's happening with the Hi-Fi reviews. So Monday also means that Tuneful Tuesdays are no longer Tuneful Tuesdays. They're coming out on Fridays. So they are Fun Tune Fridays. Fun Tune Fridays. So that's what we're going to have. Okay. So Monday, Hi-Fi video. Friday, your music. And now on to the Hi-Fi review. For this week, we're looking at a turntable. This is a high-end turntable, and as you might expect, it's priced at high-end prices. So this particular one comes from New Zealand. It's called the Wand. It comes in two bits, really. There is the plinth and your platter, and that's the main turntable. That will cost you £3,499. In addition to that, there is the Wand tone arm. This is a carbon fiber tone arm, and that is priced at £1,699. Now, if you bought them together, separately, but together, it would cost you about, what, $5,200, something like that. But there is a special combo price from the company, and that price is £4,699. Now, before we go any further, this is going to be quite a long review, I suspect. At this moment in time, I'm not sure, but I suspect. So you may want to pause this video and get yourself a drink and make yourself comfortable and sit back and let it all sink in, because this is not a simple product. It's not a simple device, and I'm going to get deep into the nooks and the crannies here. So if you have issues with long videos, you might want to skip onto another of my many videos residing on this channel. Or if you want to navigate around this channel, look down below. There are live chapter headings, and you can click on any of those and get to the bit you want. If you're interested in this particular turntable, though, I would just go through it at your own pace, because there's a lot to say and there's a lot of things to consider. Let's get to it then. Now, I don't know, maybe folks in New Zealand, where this turntable comes from, maybe they have too much time on their hands. Maybe it's that impressive scenery that inspires them. Maybe they're so busy being stuck in the corner of the world as they are, they avoid being swamped by competing influences and have, I don't know, more freedom for original thought. I've no idea, but what I do know is this. The company, Design, Build, Listen Limited, their Wand turntable is completely fascinating. Firstly, though, just why am I telling you all about it? It's not exactly new, is it? No, it isn't. And yet, it's new all over again to the UK. And that makes a big difference to the people in the UK, and I hope to everyone else in the world who wants one of these turntables. I think that move to the UK is significant and will prove decisive in how this product moves forward. Why? Because I believe the Wand as a turntable desperately needs a guiding hand in order to fulfill its promise as a successful commercial venture. Now, before we get to the hardware, I need to talk a little about the installation. The installation is a critical part of the buying experience and can make or break a product right there and then, even before it's switched on. Now, I'm sure you already know, but let me remind you, this is not an Audio-Technica machine in style, in build. It's not a project. It's not a Riga. What I mean is, it's not a plug-and-play turntable. This is not a 2-minute install product. When you buy the wand, you're buying a bespoke, hand-built piece of engineering that needs careful assembly. You don't throw this turntable together and then hope for the best. Like many high-end pieces of hi-fi that emanate from the fevered brain of one individual, in this case a Mr. Simon Brown, there is often a gap between that person's technological insight and the final customer experience. And that's no fault of Simon Brown, I hasten to add. When you're bringing a product to market, though, you do need specialists around you to help add a bit of polish in terms of the customer experience. Now, before I listened to this turntable, I checked the installation manual and I looked at the website, and then I perused the support videos on YouTube. And you're going to need all of these outlets when you're installing this turntable. The intention to offer guidance to the user to allow them to get the wand turntable up and running with little or no effort, well, that's plainly there. Trouble is, the implementation is flawed. It's okay, but it's still flawed. In short, the manual is adequate at best, while the support videos are chock full of missing information. If ever there was a reason why quality distributors are needed in the hi-fi industry, that reason is the wand. Now, talking to the UK distributor, a company called Hul Distribution, about the wand, he knows the guy who runs Hul. He knows he has an exciting product on his hands. But he also knows that there's work to be done in terms of making the installation experience a breeze. Now, the turntable I received for review was received before any of that work got underway. So the wand I have had not yet received the benefit of the distributor's expertise and experience. The wand I looked at was reduced to so many parts. It was a trial to install. It was like a Lego set. Probably more so than would normally be the case, and if you're already a wand turntable owner, possibly more than you experience. I'm reporting what I have in front of me here because that's my duty as a reviewer. However, apparently before the wand goes on sale in the UK, that will all change. Hopefully, these changes can and should be reflected in other territories later on. This turntable will hopefully receive a brand new manual, brand new support videos, and specific instructions that the donkey work of installing this turntable will lie at the feet of none other than your favorite dealer. That is, by the time you buy this turntable, the actual installation task should be pretty minimal. The dealer will be the guy who will do the heavy lifting in installation terms. Now, I hope that will be the case, and knowing the distributor as I do, I believe that will be the case. Now, if you own a wand turntable and your installation experience was easy peasy, then congratulations, and I'm happy you were able to get underway quickly. I can only report on my experience and how the design appears to sit here in the UK as I make this video. Now, one or two of you might be getting a little bit impatient. Get on with it, you might be thinking. Just get to the review. Well, no. No, frankly, because this is an expensive thing. You're being asked to pay well over £4,500. You need to know what's going on. You need to know what's in front of you and what to expect. You're spending a lot of money. If I just said, hey, here's this turntable, this is what it looks like, thank you and good night, then I wouldn't be doing you a service, would I? I wouldn't be doing my job as a journalist. So that's why I'm giving you all of these heads up. In short, my installation experience was a pretty complicated one. I'm hoping, I'm assuming, I'm assured that your experience will not be like that. Your experience should be a lot, well, it should be a lot more straightforward, and with your dealer, he should be taking all of the heavy lifting off your shoulders. He should be sorting it out. When you buy this turntable in the future, hopefully there won't be a lot to do. There'll be a few things to install and add, and hopefully they'll be very well signposted. So go into this with your eyes open and let me know if you do buy the wand in the UK and then later on in other territories. I want you to tell me about your installation experience and if the manual and the videos were up to scratch, because once I've done this review, I'm off to do something else. So I'm not going to be monitoring every last step of what's going on with the wand after I do this review, because I'm going to be doing another product after this. So down the line, if you do grab a wand, turntable and arm, tell me about your experience. Tell me if you were happy with the dealer, how they treated you. Did they do the installation or the majority of the installation that you expected? Was the manual good? Were the support videos up to speed? Did they give you all the information you needed, required? Like I say, the installation of a turntable, especially of this complexity, is critical. That's why I'm dwelling upon it. That's why I'm devoting such a large part of this video to it. Let's get to the Wand 14.4 turntable itself, shall we? And I think we need to take a closer look. Welcome to the closer look section for the Wand 14.4 turntable, and the first question any reasonable person would ask about the Wand 14.4 turntable is, why is it called the 14.4? Well, it's because the platter is 14 inches in diameter, and that same platter comprises of 4 layers bonded together. Those layers offer alternating aluminium and acrylic. The layering is there partly to damp, but also to drain noise from the record and down through the platter. On top of that platter is a donut-shaped piece of acrylic, which is basically the platter mat. The diameter is such to increase the inertia of the plinth, which helps to maintain a steady speed with less strain. Having a larger yet slimmer platter is actually a more efficient way of producing that extra inertia. More efficient than the normal solution of offering a smaller yet thicker platter. According to Simon Brown, doing it his way is actually twice as efficient. Onto the plinth now, and on the bottom left is a large bespoke pulley, which is an unusual place to have a pulley, I would say. The pulley connects to the platter with a Swiss-made belt. That is run by a DC motor and an isolated servo to maintain your speed. Now, before you add the platter itself, underneath the platter, if you just look at the plinth on its own, that plinth looks like a quarter of a squashed circle. It's a very unusual shape, a strange design. More than that, it's full of holes. The holes are there almost as, well, kind of fire breaks. In effect, vibration and noise breaks. They stop motor vibration and noise moving across the plinth and up the tone arm and through the bearing. The plinth sits on 3 suspended feet using solid silicon O-rings as the suspension system. This means that the suspension does not wander over time. For example, some turntables do need to be recalibrated after a period, but not the wand. The spindle, you'll notice, appears to be placed off to the side, almost as an afterthought. Now, The reason for this is that the center of gravity has been shifted on the 14-4. Instead of the center of gravity lying right underneath a centrally mounted spindle, as it is with most turntables currently on the market, the center of gravity for the 14-4 is placed on the arc of play. That is, the arc the stylus traces when it moves across a vinyl record. So that is where the center of gravity exists. The holes in the plinth hold a sort of double duty in this regard because they help to push the center of gravity to that arc position. What all of that means is that during play, the arc is the center of isolation. Basically, it's the stillest point of the entire turntable. It's the place where there is the least vibration going on, the least noise. And as that's where the action is, to me, it's a sensible move. The wand turntable can hold different sized tone arms. You've got a choice of 9.5 inches, 10.3 inches, and a 12-inch arm. I grabbed the middle one for the review, the 10.3 inch. Oh, and you will find a lid in the box too. That comes as standard. I didn't get a copy for review, so I couldn't test that, I'm afraid. The arm tube on the wand tone arm is made from carbon fiber, and that's mounted to a large, non-movable counterweight block on the rear. To adjust tracking force, there are a number of plates which are affixed to the rear, and that can be added or removed via a screw-threaded bolt. You also get a larger screw-threaded bolt on the rear that acts as a sort of fine tuner, which enables you to change the tracking force by fractions of a gram. Now, these plates, they're not just fixed in one position. They can move laterally a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right if you need to. Why would you need to do that? Well, you can change the azimuth of your cartridge by doing that. So if you move these back plates a little to the right, it will move the arm a little to the right, and it will change the azimuth of your cartridge, which is very useful. In front of the block is an anti-skate weight. That's literally a weight hanging off a piece of fishing wire. There's also an arm lift, which is built in, and there's a piece of metal that pivots to lock the tone arm into place. Incidentally, how do you move the tone arm manually to the surface of your vinyl? There's no obvious finger lift, is there? Well, there is. It's actually built in to the tube. It's that pointy bit at the very front of the arm. You place your finger underneath that pointy bit, and then you lift it over to the vinyl record itself. It's quite an elegant solution and very easy to use. Another thing I have to mention about the wand is the almost complete absence of a recognizable head shell. There is no head shell per se on the wand. Now, the last time I saw this sort of anti-head shell thinking was when I last reviewed a turntable from the Funk firm. Here, the wand's tone arm employs a pretty thin piece of metal to connect the cartridge to the arm. The idea being that the head shell mass is reduced, which will in turn reduce resonance. Now, it's at this point I want to talk about the included jig, which is a complex shaped piece of metal. It's also one of the most useful tools I've ever used on a turntable, and it's only matched by examples I've seen and used with VPI turntables, for example. This convolutedly shaped piece of metal is used to set the overhang of the tone arm, the arm height, the azimuth of your cartridge, and other cartridge settings. It's very easy to use, highly recommended, and I wish more turntable manufacturers had them bundled with their turntable as part of a default install routine. Running at 3 speeds, 78 RPM is included as standard via a nicely chunky speed control positioned on the bottom right of the plinth. The plinth itself is made from a German-sourced plywood. An earth wire runs from the plinth and also runs from the tone arm, while a thin cable runs from the tone arm itself with a pair of phono plugs terminating at the end. The mains cable is attached to a switch mode type power supply, and that plugs in via a hidden socket angled around the bottom left-hand area of the plinth. An older style power supply used to use 2 plugs. An upgraded version, which is the one I've got, only has the 1 plug. So you've got 1 plug and 2 sockets. I'm reliably informed you can pick either socket and the power supply will work fine. So it works fine. Does it sound fine? Well, let's go to the sound quality tests and we will find out. Welcome to the sound quality tests for the Wand turntable, and to start those tests, well, I ran a little bit of prog, as is my wont, and I turned to Mr. Rick Wakeman and his release 6 Wives of Henry VIII on A&M, I think it was, mainly because of the wide-ranging and varied instruments that are spread right across the soundstage and include things like analog synths and varied organic instruments, plus you get a female backing chorus for good measure. Now, as for the cartridge, well, I began with moving magnet and the Goldring 1042, which is one of the best moving magnet designs out there. Now, your first question, after me saying that, might be something like this. Why? The 1042 might be a quality moving magnet design, but it remains moving magnet and it costs a mere £324, which, when you look at the price of the Wand turntable and the tone arm, well, it really is mere. To explain then, this turntable is a high-end design. It costs a pretty penny. Now, unless you're a high-income earner, and if you are, congratulations, but unless you are, you're going to have to save, and you're going to have to scrimp, and you're going to have to do without until you hit that magic point when the big buy sign lights up in neon and flashes to you and declares that, yes, you now have permission to play that rare Argentinian promo pressing of the Birdie song, the one with the picture cover and the tweet to the beat message on the runoff. After that brief dizzy spell dissipates, at that point, you may suddenly realize that you have no cartridge to run on the Wand because all your money's gone. You certainly don't have the £2,000 plus to give the Wand the quality of cartridge it really deserves. So, what to do? What to do? You make do. You get yourself a half-decent cartridge just to get you going, so you can actually play vinyl, just to prevent the Wand becoming a static ornament and a talking point at parties. You can go with, well, you can go with one of 3 ways, I reckon. Either you get yourself a high-end moving magnet, which is my particular choice in this review, or you can get a high-output moving coil, which uses the same moving magnet settings, something like, I don't know, a Hanna EH for just over £400. Finally, if your phono amplifier is good enough to handle moving coils, and think about that before you move on this, make sure your phono amplifier is good enough so it won't become a bottleneck, then you can go for a low-cost moving coil, something like, I don't know, a Benz Micro Gold for $350. There's plenty of others. Ortofon does a Quintet Red, is it, for $250, something like that. Like I say, lots of choice out there. Now, I wanted to see how the Wand handled moving magnet technology. So that's the reason I picked the 1042. And how does the Wand sound with this mere 1042 cartridge? Well, it sounds like this. Wow! That's it. That's the review. Don't forget to click the like and subscribe below. I'll be back next week, so for now it's thank you and good night. No, really. Even with a mere moving magnet, or an MMM, as I like to call them, the Wand was impressive. No, strike that. Seriously impressive. 2 things grabbed me right from the off. The timing. My goodness, the timing. So how should I convey what I mean here? Well, look, For those of a certain age, or for those who like nostalgia TV, take yourself back to, I don't know, the 60s or the 70s, let's say, and watch something psychedelic, something like The Avengers maybe, and imagine a protagonist. Let's say the guy's being drugged, and they always used to like doing this sort of thing because you could see through the guy's eyes, couldn't you? And you could see that this guy is like staring at a chair, and all of a sudden he's seeing three of this chair. It's all split up. His vision is out of phase. That's what you get from a lot of turntables. Not that extreme, of course. The out of phase I'm talking about has to be reined back an awful lot. Almost in focus, but not quite. Often the problem with turntables is like that, but like I say, the effect is often subtle. It's that kind of thing, but a lot more subtle. Not as obvious or as extreme as our Avengers episode at any rate. Even so, the brain struggles a bit because it knows there's an issue, it knows there's an error, and your brain hates errors because it's a pretty sensitive measuring device, you know. So when everything is truly in phase, when that focus is pin sharp, when in fact the timing is spot on, the brain, maybe for the first time ever when listening to vinyl, it relaxes. It truly relaxes. Music is focused, yes, but it's also accurate now. Notes start on the microsecond they're supposed to start, and they end, again, on the nail. Your brain, well, it stops trying to fix things, and it relaxes, as I say, and it starts to truly enjoy music. It backs off. And that, my friends, is the wand in a rather large nutshell. Now, I did mention two things. The second thing, well, because of that focus and accuracy, the definition of the detail was just outstanding. Previously shy and reserved guitars offered a lot more information now. The precision around the mid-range was just stunning. For treble, well, cymbal splashes seem to reach further and offer a lot longer and richer reverb effect, or echo effect, if you like. Bass, that was no different. There was an impressive precision here. There's a snap that offered both impact but also character. There was nothing plastic or unnatural here. Frankly, I could easily live with the wand and the Goldring 1042 and nothing else. But we don't want to settle for that, do we? Oh no. Let's move up the scale, shall we? And let's go moving coil. So I reached for an Ortofon Cadenza bronze, retailing for about 1,800 or so, just to see how that affected the sound. Now, one thing, when installing cartridges that feature cartridge bodies with a built-in screw thread, where the screw thread is actually in the chassis, as it were, the wand, because it's got a very thin head shell, this metal plate, doesn't really help. Because when you buy a cartridge, in the box, there'll be a set of screws. And the manufacturer thinks you're going to be attaching them to a head shell with a certain thickness. Well, the wand doesn't have that thickness. The wand has no thickness, almost. So the screws are going to be too long. So you're going to screw in your cartridge, and it's going to go all the way, and it ain't going to go anymore. And your cartridge is going to wobble about because there's no more screw thread. It's all gone. So what do? Well, I scratched my head about this, and I ended on the solution, which is grab a couple of washers. Add a couple of washers and your cartridge will be firmly installed. Problem solved. In sound terms then, what did this moving coil give to the wand, if anything? Well, it brought lots of extra space in and around the soundstage, so instruments had a real newly minted freshness about them. The soundstage as a whole sounded scrubbed and clean. There was a real "this is a new day" feel. This is a band playing after a good breakfast feel about the sound. They were fully rested, this band, and they knew what they were doing. What I mean is the sound had a real confidence. Or the treble, cymbal taps had a real delicacy, but a distinctly metal ting to it as well. There was a rich and expansive metallic sound that was both fragile but also rich in terms of that reverb comeback after a hit. Percussion, well, percussion sounded nimble, almost athletic. The accuracy I mentioned earlier added a real pizzazz to the percussion. A sense here that there was a professional going about his business. This was a guy on top of his game. The further drop in terms of the noise floor added more detail, while separating each instrument, meaning that the sounds were better isolated. You could hear where one instrument started and then stopped. This added to the overall complexity of the sound, that richness again. To this point, I had been testing the wand without using the clamp. To repeat, thus far, the clamp had had no part in these sonic tests. So it was time I brought it in and had a listen. With the clamp in place, well, it sounded very nice indeed, but it's not for me. Now, some people will love it, and I can understand why, and you need to check it out yourself, and you need to make a decision, but I preferred to leave the clamp off the wand. Why was that? The clamp gives you an extra sense of control across all frequencies. There's more focus, there's more precision, and there's more strengthening of the bass. What I mean by that is that the bass offered more mass, more structure. Some will see the addition of the clamp as an aid to giving more balance. However, I think the wand already gives you all of those things. I think the wand already is doing that job without the clamp. I don't think it needs the clamp, and I think the clamp pushes all of those things further on, sometimes too far. I think the clamp actually removes some of the magic. Without the clamp, I'm there. I'm in the music. I'm having as much fun as the band. With the clamp in place, it's a bit like looking at a masterpiece. There's a sense of separation. There's me, there's a gap, and then there's the music. With the clamp, the music lacks a little bit of life and excitement and unpredictability. The latter is required because it's being produced by an unpredictable species, the fault-ridden humans. That's what makes the wand great. The clamp, it over-controls, it adds boundaries, it says to the music, you will not pass this point. Me, I love not knowing what's going to happen next. There's a real sense of freedom without the clamp, a rush of excitement. The clamp dulls music. Thus, it took no further part in this review. Now, time to push limits, I think, along with a move to a new vinyl. Tony Bennett, in fact, and his album Something on CBS. I reached for a very expensive cartridge indeed, in excess of £4,000 expensive. I grabbed a Hul Crimson XGA Stradivarius. Now, why did I reach for a cartridge which is basically the same price as the turntable? Well, I have this rule which I try to follow, not always successfully. It's called the rule of thirds, and it's a target for turntables to enable a turntable to reach its full capacity. What do I mean by that? So in broad terms, this means having a turntable where the plinth and the platter and the tone arm and the cartridge all retail for around the same value. It doesn't have to be exact, but it does have to be there or thereabouts. The basis of this idea is to remove the performance pressure from the plinth and the platter. And I do think there's too much stress laid upon the plinth and the platter. It's also to pay full respect to the tone arm, and there's too little respect given to this component. And it's also to trust the cartridge to be able to give more performance without the owner bottling out and making do with a much cheaper model. When you look at Hi-Fi magazine reviews, doesn't matter where they are, print, online, you tend to get this expensive platter plinth with this much cheaper tone arm and this piddling little cartridge on the end. That seems to be the ratio that you're seeing. What I'm saying is each of these components should be priced at the same level. So in this case, £4,000 for the plinth and the platter, £4,000 for the tone arm, and £4,000 for the cartridge. Now, with the Crimson Strad in place, I was matching the price of the plinth and the platter. Both of those were the same value. The tone arm, though, well, that was the minor figure in price terms, because it's priced at a lower £1,700. Nevertheless, I wanted to see how far I could push this tone arm. Just how good was it? How far would it go? I wanted to see if the tone arm became a bottleneck if pushed in sonic terms. So, in a way, this cartridge test with this 4K Vanden Hul, it was more about testing the tone arm than the cartridge, because it was the tone arm that's going to be under pressure here. So how did this combo sound? Well, it was a curate's egg. It was good in parts. Highlights were an improvement overall. There were highlights. There was an overall improvement in sound. Sound became, well, it became mature. It sounded expensive. And that gave an indication just where the wand turntable as a whole could go if you really pushed it and pushed it hard. There's real capacity here, and there are further heights to scale in sonic terms. But with this setup that I had, there were certain areas of the mid-range that kind of strained and ran out of puff. You could hear the cartridge and the rest of the turntable wanting to soar, but they were hitting a ceiling which was imposed upon it by the tone arm. So the tone arm was sort of getting in the way. Now, that is not the fault of the tone arm, because, as we know, this tone arm is priced around $1,700. It's not a 4K tone arm. Even so, this test was still valuable because it showed me that even if you buy this turntable in the configuration I'm giving you in this video, if you take that home and you have a great time with it, and you will, and then later on you get some cash from the back of the sofa and you say to yourself, I'm going to spend $4,000 on a tone arm, is it worth it? I'm here to tell you, it is worth it. And that's an upgrade option that you can go for in the future. Now, what you would end up with if you also grabbed a 4K cartridge is a turntable that would be priced at £12,000 in total. But I'm here to tell you now that turntable will be very special indeed. So to repeat, even if you buy the wand in this configuration I have here and the price it demands, just over 4.5K, that upgrade option is there if you want it and if you can afford it. But to repeat, if you do go for it, the upgrade will be well worth it. That the wand can even consider reaching such sonic heights is truly exciting. Now, I didn't test such a concept because that would turn this review into an upgrade feature, and we're here to review the plinth and the tone arm package as sent to me. So, how do we conclude the review of the wand turntable with the wand tone arm? Let me give you a few concluding thoughts, then we'll look at the pros and cons, and then we'll consider a rating. Full of unique and interesting design choices, the wand is the result of independent research. This is not a Me Too turntable. This deck is not a crowd follower. It's not a profit chaser. It's a pioneer. It breaks new ground. The wand is obviously a work of love that's chasing a musical passion. It's the result of a singular vision. In short, the wand is a work of art. If you can afford the wand, get it. Simple as that. It's a brilliant turntable. So let's look at a few pros and cons, shall we? In the good column, well, this is an innovative and unique design. The shape of the plinth is very strange indeed. We have that change in the center of gravity, the wand's minimal head shell design, and so on. Aesthetics, well, I happen to like the look of the wand. I think it looks a little bit quirky, different. You may have a different opinion, of course, but I like it. In sound terms, mid-range timing was just amazing, and I loved the accuracy of the mid-range. Overall definition of detail was just stunning, as was the rich treble, which managed to balance delicacy but lots of information as well. Bass, well, bass was always characterful. It always sounded relaxed and detailed and organic. On the bad side, well, I would just look at the clamp. I could do without it. You may think differently, but I would use the clamp as a paperweight. As for the rating, well, there's enough innovation here to warrant my ultimate accolade, which is why I'm going to give this turntable an extraordinarily rare Golden Groovy 10 out of 10 award. Congratulations to the designer, Simon Brown. And that's it, folks. Thank you very much for staying to the end of this rather long video. If I can remind you that down below is the description full of these live chapter headings so you can navigate around the video itself. If I could ask for your continued support, which has been very welcome, but if you haven't already, click the subscribe button, if I could ask you to do that. Also the like button, which is also down there somewhere. If you could give that a click, that would be much appreciated. Also in the description are links to my Facebook group, my website, and my Patreon page. And if you can support me on Patreon, it helps to keep this channel going. Literally, without Patreon, this channel dies a death. So any support you can give me is much appreciated. I will be back with something musical related on Friday. What is it again? What did I call it? Fun Tunes Friday, wasn't it? It's been a long video. I think it's Fun. If you can think of a better name, let me know. But it's the alliteration I wanted. FF, Fun Time, Fun Time. Fun Tunes Friday. So it's tough, isn't it, with the letter F? Anyway, I will be back then with maybe Masterworks, but we'll see how it goes. Hope to have your company because I get lonely without you. Until that time, folks, bye-bye for now.